Today is day 2 of my pond build as part of my tropical style garden transformation here in the UK. Yesterday we got it all cleared out, the last of the digging, got the underlay in, got the liner in. I've had a bit of a slow start today because I've had to go and get some materials, but I am raring to go. It is a beautiful day here today. Temperatures are going to be good, and hopefully we can make some good progress. Okay, so I think the first task of today is to sort out my intake bay, which is going in this hole here. Basically, an intake bay is where the pump's going to be, and it draws the water in along the top current, goes in, falls into some crates, and then the pump will push it right down to the waterfall at the other end. The idea is any leaves that drop into the pond will be drawn into this one area where this will be shallower, and this I can then just net it, get it out, it draws it in and keeps it clearer. So I've had to first dig out the size of the crate and where the pump's going to go. I've leveled that off with sharp sand so the crates can sit level, obviously. Let's go and have a look at that, and then we'll see the next step. This is my improvised crate for my intake bay. Basically, I've bought 2 crates. I've bought one full one there, which they basically used in building for taking away rainwater. You dig a hole, put them in with membrane around them, and they store the water, and that slowly perforates into the soil. They are similar to what would be known in the pond industry as aqua block. So if you're building one, you can look at that, and they're used basically for, storing volumes of water within the pond. And then I've cut another one in half and I've hollowed it out. The reason being is that is where my pump is going to go. That will make more sense in a minute. This pond so far, I've used some quite good, real quality, expensive materials, really good underlay, one of the best liners I could get, along with other stuff. But as always, this is a DIY project. I also felt that, I should be sort of saying, can we save money as well where we can? And this, my budget has been really stretched by how expensive this is all becoming. So there's a few websites out there and YouTube channels. One, Oz Ponds, where he started to do these ponds, but show different ways in which you could use different materials to make certain elements cheaper. So that got me thinking, how could I make certain parts more budget friendly? And what I've done here basically is a pump vault, which is just going to house the pump, and it allows the water to soak in, and you can access the pump and everything like that. It keeps clean. But they are about 300 odd pound for this particular style, if I'd brought one. So what I did is I decided to make my own version, where I've hollowed out this crate. There is still lots and lots of strength in it, because obviously once you cut it out, it will weaken these. But I know that this particular part where the pump vault is going to be under the bridge. So though, apart from some pebbles and stuff, there will be no real weight on it. So that's my first saving. And basically this lid, I have a riser tube there, which is just from a manhole that I've brought separate. If I need to bring this higher, and if that's the case, I can fix that on there. Nothing has to be sealed or water, because it's going to be filled full of water within the pond. And then I could cut that down to any size I want, to what level I want. If I don't need it, I won't use it, and then I can sort of just silicone that on the top just to hold it in place when it's all level. Take the screws out, and then if I ever need to, I can just lift that out. I've made sure that my pump fits through the hole and inside, and I have plenty of room in there to get my pipe work through. So that is my improvised crate for my intake bay. I'm going to put the underlay in, I'm going to check it all fits, and then I've got to look at putting my liner in and doing the scary bit of thinking about seaming, which is joining one liner to another using the special equipment. Right, that's the seaming work done. I put the first lot of tape on, then I've put this 6-inch cover tape which has been glued on that overlaps sort of the under joint by about 3 inches each way, 75mm each side. Realistically, I've seamed much more than I probably needed to, because actually there's only that very shallow bit that's underwater, but I just felt, you know, I was quite nervous about doing this bit, so I've overdone it so I can pull the liner left or right and mess around with it if that's a bit off square, and put a couple of folds or whatever in. I'm leaving the wood under there for now, leave that a while, give it an hour or so, make sure it's all gone off. And what I'll probably do is go on to, might get the pipe in, see how that's going to look for the fish tunnel while I'm doing that. Right, let's go have a look at the pipe. Okay, so I've got the pipe in, and I've got to admit, this whole section, along with other parts of the pond, is very, very challenging. Now actually starting to build this thing, I'm realising that the design was one thing, the actual build is another. I've made it, and I knew it, but I've made it extremely hard for myself, with the lack of room, all the plants around it, the materials I've got to use. It's all, yeah, been very, very challenging, I must admit, and been quite stressful at times, but let's get on to the positives. The pipe's in. The pipe went in, then I folded back both sides, then I've backfilled either side with sharp sand up to halfway of it, round the back there and round the back there, to make sure it can't move, it's solid, to make sure there's no movement or settlement. That's all been compacted in. And then I cut part of this pipe out so I could put this rock in. It hasn't been totally leveled yet because I've got to build some rocks round to hide this face and this face, but I needed to put this rock across the front as like a lintel so it can hold all the gravel back behind it. So this is about 2 inches, 50mm higher than the pipe, but the water will be just probably about another 3 inches higher than this, so the water can still come straight over the top of this, but the fish will be able to swim underneath. Now bear in mind, this whole area is getting very tight, especially once the rocks go in. It's getting to a point where I'm probably going to end up putting goldfish in because it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's definitely becoming a challenge. I knew it would be, but oh dear, it is. So yeah, I've made sure it don't move, and then I've started backfilling the top with gravel. I need to get a lot more on there yet, but I've ordered some more rocks, and I need some more rocks to start bringing the edges in, and then I could put the stepping stones across. So that gravel will be about 2 inches, about level the top of this stone, covering the whole of that, and then the stepping stones will go on top of that, staggering across that way. They'll be above water, I think only just above water, because that sort of makes it a little bit more treacherous. If they're only half inch above the water, it makes you feel like you're almost stepping into the water. But obviously I want to be a little bit out if I can, in case, you know, the water levels go up or down a little bit with rainfall or dry spells. Either way, I don't know, I'm making it up as I go along, to be honest. This is the trouble when you've got a design, but sometimes your inexperience makes things very, very difficult, and you're second guessing everything. So for instance, here you can see the pipe that's going around to my back waterfall. I went to put it underneath, and then I was like, well, if I need to put any jets off it, that might be awkward, so I've come above it, but then that's going to make it very awkward to hide around here. So I'm actually going to have to fold this back and dig a bit more out so I can get this pipe further back. Once I've rocked up here, I'm going to try and cut some rocks into the shape here just to hide the edges of that, like I have the top, and just across there. And then this is going to be extremely hard to rock in, because it gets shallower up here. That's the deepest part, so I can bring a couple of rocks and the pebbles to bring that up, and then I've got to get, I don't know, just over a foot up with the rocks, and then I can put a flat rocks and build that up into the thing. But that first bit is definitely going to be a challenge. I'm going to need, because there isn't many of these big rocks for me to use. Lots of them are smaller, flatter rocks that need to be stacked. I have been doing some work in the pond. I haven't been able to film it all because the neighbours have been having quite a bit of work done in the garden, and that's meant that there's been quite a lot of noise, made it very hard to film. And plus also trying to do the work and film, I found very sort of challenging. Just holding the camera while trying to do the work, it slowed me down so much. So I've done a bit more, and then I'd rather just talk through the process. If you've got any questions, just ask me. Okay, so a few days have gone by since that last bit of video. It was very hard to film for many different reasons, with noise and everything next door. And also I have been rocking in the front pond, but I found it one of the most stressful things I've ever done, in the garden especially. I'll walk forward, we'll see where I'm at, and then I'm going to explain the good and the bad, because I knew it was an ambitious build. I'm far from finished. As you can see, I have made what looks like a very sort of deep quarry type well. I have found that this rock has been so challenging. I went for Welsh slate because I have this already in my garden, but there's a lot of difference between using Welsh slate in as rocks around the border to actually trying to build a pond out of it. And I found it extremely frustrating, extremely stressful to try and get it all to work. Now, I didn't go into this pond build thinking I'd pick the easiest option going. I knew it was going to be a stressful, sort of challenging job. I just didn't realise how bad it was going to be. So this isn't finished, by the way. This is pretty much mainly rocked in. There's still lots of details, edging to do later once the water's put in, but that can't be done because I've not even done any of the back yet. But I've still got some rocks to go around the top edges around here, to blend that in. I have run out of pebbles. I've run out and had to reorder more stone because it used a load more stone. The amount of times I have got in and out of this pond, changing the rocks, trying to find different rocks that fit. They do not stack well. They're all weird, awkward shapes. They're fatter than they are higher. It'd be so nice if you could go and hand select all these rocks, but I couldn't. So I've had to make do with what was delivered. There's still quite a lot more rocks left to go in, but there's still loads more pond to do. I'm sure I'm gonna have to order some more, but lots of them are very awkward shapes that you really are struggling to use, and that's the problem. When you haven't got this big quarry of rocks and you can pick your own or can select the rocks. So I'm not going to say I'm disappointed with how it's turned out, but I had much higher expectations. I know it's going to be softened once all the planting goes in, once the algae gets there, once I get mosses in. I've still got more of the bigger pebbles to put in and blend in. There's lots and lots of the detail work to happen later, but because at the minute, obviously I've just wet this off to wash it off a little bit. There is, in the very bottom there, which is about 3 foot deep, there's about 3 inches of water. So if the worst comes to the worst, at least I know that the bottom bit of a liner hasn't got a leak in. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time rocking this in. The water level is going to come up to somewhere around about that edge there, so around there. So that'll be almost like a beach to come out onto the logs. It's going to be 50 mil, 2 inches just below the bridges. This is where them crates went in. I'll show you them crates. They've gone in. The pump access will now be under that bridge. I've just got to adapt the bridge a little bit, but I should be able to take the middle section out, lift the hatch door off and get at the pump. I haven't done anything at the back of the waterfall there yet because I'm not dead sure how I'm going to do it. Like I say, at the minute it's got very much a harsh, almost quarry type feel to it, and I sort of knew that was going to happen. But like I say, I will put some logs into the water. I will have plants all around it. I will try and get some marginals into some of the gravel pockets. Usually so some of the problems I faced doing this, okay, that side was very steep with the rocks I had, so I almost had to use big flat rocks that I could stack. I tried so many different ways of doing it. I could have done with, if I'd had a couple of really big round boulders, not round boulders, but tall boulders, but very few of these rocks, because it's slate, they're quite flat, and that where if I look at that one, that is probably one example of a deep rock I've got, and maybe a deeper one there, but most of them are probably only 4 to 6 inches thick, and that makes it very, very hard to get up and to get to aesthetically make it the way I wanted to. Like I say, but this is seeing it without the water in, without the plants, without the rocks, because at the minute it feels very, very harsh. It's hard to tell what it looks like on camera, but it does look like a big, let me see if I can zoom out a bit, if that helps or not. So obviously it's very, very sort of rocky at the minute, but once I can't sort out all this liner and hide all that until the water's in and I know everything's good. But there's realistically, where this top is, that is about 8 inches, 200 mil higher than water level, so I should be able to sort all this edging out, hide all the liner, put a few more rocks in round here, and then get plants overhanging, which will soften all that. Yeah, the intake bay, if I could have, I would have tried to have made that wider, because obviously the water's got to come in there. I may have to play around with this rock at the front just to change the level a little bit to try and help it pull in, but basically the water's gonna come around here, go into there, and then get sucked down into that crate below, and then that will send it all the way back. So that, I'm not going to say pre-filters it, but it stops any gunk going towards the pump, which is sort of hidden under all them pebbles. The water can still get through all them round pebbles. You've got to always use round pebbles, not sort of like square stony aggregate, just so there's all gaps in between it, so it doesn't all lock in too tight. So the water's going, any leaves and that should be pulled into that area, so I can just net it off there. I'm going to go round the back, and this bit has not been working. I've had to play around with it so much, but it's just not working. Some of these stones are just stacked here, so this isn't how it's going to be. Them stones on there are all just stacked there. That's not how it's going to be. But I tried to, let me just get a bit closer. I tried to work out how I could hide this cave with the rocks I've got. The rocks I've got just aren't stacking well enough. This is too steep up this side for me to be able to stack. So I've been struggling. I've tried so many rocks. I mean, like hours of trying different ways of doing it. Because if I use the rocks flat, this is going to be so thin that nothing can actually swim down it. Once I can get the rocks to these shelves, then I can put sort of rocks going back and build my way up as like coping. But at the minute, it's just becoming, the stream's becoming smaller, meaning it's very difficult to have big fish in here. That is something I'm going to have to debate strongly, because like I say, it's one thing to design a garden like this, it's another to actually build it. So if I zoom back out again, how I'm going to try to do this is probably use some big rocks, but like I say, I can't use too fat ones because they're just going to take up all the width of the stream and then nothing's going to swim through it. And then I might do the odd big rock like that one, and then try and use some of this dry stone walling. I'll just go back round and show you under the bridge how I've used it there, and then maybe I can show you how I'm going to build this as like a canal. Right, so under the bridge I've used the dry stone walling like that, which is made of the same slate material. It's a lot more expensive, but it allows me to stack it leaning backwards and get over certain spaces. So it still takes up some of the pond space, but because it's only sort of 4 inches wide, 100mm wide, it allows me to build up the sides, hide the liner of membrane. I do want to hide the liner of membrane just to give it a more natural look. Obviously this stuff's going to get covered in algae and get all messed up over time, but I want it to sort of look as natural as I possibly can. And then as I'm building it, I'll use some of the fish safe like aquascape sort of expansion foam, and then spray it in the gaps, everything to try and help bond it all together and hold it in place, which none of that you'll see. And like I say, then it's going to get algae and everything growing it, but I feel like it's about my only option to build that sides up, because I have tried and tried so many different things. Now if I could go to a quarry and hand pick all the right rocks, then I feel like I could have built this so much better, but I couldn't. You know, I've spent quite a bit of money on rocks already. They've been very awkward. My build's been awkward. The shape, the steepness, the design, everything has been awkward. And like I say, I didn't go into that not thinking that was the case. I didn't feel like it was going to take so long, be so stressful. And what I mean by stressful is trying to find the answers to the problems. You know, I'd come in and try different rocks, then think, right, I can get over that. And it's like, oh no, that's not working. So I've got to try this, then try that and try it. And then finding it harder and harder to find the solutions. I think originally I did think, when I thought these were quite steep, I thought, oh yeah, but when I get the rocks, there'll be some big ones I can use to get up to the height and all stuff like that. I do think a lot of it comes down to your prep and design, and then also the rocks you have to fit that design. And I think I sort of got both a bit wrong. I was limited. For those that have followed me all the way to here, I only got so much space to get round here. You know, I couldn't make it any wider. I had to make it a certain depth. All them things become challenging, but I do think I could probably build these up in some sort of thing to dry stone walling up to the first shelves. If I can't, because if I order more rocks, I can't guarantee what's going to come. I've ordered some of the bigger rocks and the bigger rocks come, but some of them are big and flat like paving stones, which don't really help. If they're too tall and too fat, then they take up too much space. Problems, problems, problems. Okay, so at present, I am disappointed is the wrong word. Frustrated is probably the best word to describe it. I'm frustrated with how it's gone together, how the rocks were very, very difficult. I've tried to explain this to my wife, like I felt like I'm building a jigsaw with no picture and none of the pieces fit together. And that's the best way I can sort of describe it. There's certain rocks that I didn't even want to use, but you had to use, because otherwise you're just going to be throwing away lots and lots of money and having to order other ones in. So you're having to sort of try and fit them in, squeeze them in, do different things. I had this sort of image in my head that it would just be some rocks, gravel shelf, rocks, gravel shelf, rocks, gravel shelf. It was too steep, the stones were too wide. They literally take up a whole shelf when you put them on there because they're so big and fat slabs. But when it comes down to it, I'm committed now. There's no turning back. Like I say, I don't want this to be a negative video, but I have found it extremely challenging, and that has meant that at some points I've not wanted to film stuff because I've just been so frustrated with the whole situation and trying to figure out how to deal with the problems and get over stuff. Like at the minute, as I sort of look through the footage, it's a bit different to how I see it in real life, but at the minute it looks so sort of overpowering because all you can just see is a massive like rock quarry. But I do know that once I start softening it up, I can put logs around the edges, and all different stuff. There's plants that can go in and around it, plants all around the edges hanging over and stuff. I know I can sort of soften it down. I know once the algae starts growing, no one really wants algae in the pond, but you know, it sort of does, you do get some, and it's gonna sort of add to that more natural look. But yeah, so I haven't even started the back bit yet. I'm on holiday next week, so I was hoping to get most of this done before I went, but that's just gone horribly wrong. Plus I've got to order more materials again because I've run out of stuff again. Yeah, so I don't really know much more what to say about it. It hasn't turned out quite how I wanted, but I do know it's still early days. Would I do it all again? There is things I would change. I wouldn't have made this front bit so deep, most definitely not. It's 3 foot in the middle. I would have just got rid of that bottom bit and just kept it 2 foot deep. That would have saved me a world of problems just to start with. I sort of wanted the depth just so any fish could go a little bit deeper and help regulate temperature and all that sort of stuff. What else could I have changed? Realistically, maybe the stream. I didn't need to make the stream as deep as I did. I did it because I wanted the tunnel and the stepping stones going over it, which has been another challenge in itself, getting all that round. And then the back bit is just another big problem trying to get up the sides. Like I say, I think I'm going to keep repeating myself, but I think if you've got a never-ending supply of rocks and you can pick just the ones you want, I could have built this so much sort of cleaner and nicer. I'm trying not to come up with the old saying like a bad workman blames his tools type thing, but when you've only got certain rocks to choose from and you're trying to build it up, you're trying to hide the liner, you're trying to make it look natural, it is very, very challenging. You know, if I could just go there and go, right, I've got loads of big rocks there, loads of medium rocks there, loads of small rocks there, but unfortunately, you know, you buy them and you get what comes with this Welsh slate. Some of them are really nice looking rocks, and like the ones I've got already in my garden, you know, were sort of really nice character rocks, but a lot of them come and they're really, really awkward to use. Right, okay, I didn't want this to be a sort of negative video. I wanted it to be like, because I've been so excited about doing all this, and you lot have been excited about watching me do this, but I'm also being realistic about how difficult it's been, how slow it's been. I can't even believe how long sometimes it takes just to find one blooming rock that fits. Carrying it in and out, in and out. It's done my back in, I've hurt my knee, everything, and I've still had to try and work through it because I only had a certain amount of time to get on with it. Okay, right, I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you for your support. I'm gonna have to come away from it for a little while because I've got a holiday next week, so just to give myself a break from it, come back. It's probably we've had such hot weather as well. The garden's like struggling because it's been so dry. Brilliant for building the pond, but you know, it's been about 30 degrees Celsius most of this week working out here, carrying rocks in and out. Right, like I say, gonna leave it at that. Any comments, feel free to leave it either way round, and then hopefully when I get back from holiday, I've ordered some dry stone walling, tried to figure out a way of getting around the back, and I think I need to get back to work as well, so things are going to slow down a bit. But I wanted to show you the progress. I wanted to show you the negatives as well as the positives, because it hasn't, I literally thought it was going to be so enjoyable. I thought it was going to be like building a piece of art, and I was just going to get each rock and go, oh yeah, look at that. It was not that experience at all. Okay, like I say, any comments, you know where to leave it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.